What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Professional Wingman Podcast. I am your guy, your wingman, Thomas Edwards, and I'm here to help you become iconic. And I'm really excited for today's guest. I just heard a screaming, pounding of lightning and thunder. So if the power goes out or the internet goes out, please stick around. I will come back and we'll continue this podcast. But this is what happens when we do it live, right? So I just want to get my guest onto here as quickly as possible. I want to first start off and just say he is one of my best friends. He is an incredibly talented human being. He is as lovable as anyone I've ever met, has endured a lot of great hardship in various areas of life. And he is one of those guys that I can, and I'll share in this episode, when I was at my lowest, he was one of the two people in my life that stuck around and witnessed, my downfall and my inevitable rise again. And when you have someone who believes in you like that, you make a commitment to never let that person leave your side. So we'll get into that. And actually a really fun fact, when I first created the one-up effect, he is, we like to call him Agent Zero, because he was the first person to implement the philosophy and help really spur what it is today. And I would love for him to share his experience and his growth and his continuous growth with that. I consider him also not just one of my best friends, but one of my best clients, just because of the success that he's been able to create since then has been nothing short of miraculous. And we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. We're going to get personal. We're going to talk about our personal lives, maybe some stories, and we're going to talk about what we're up to these days. And we're going to just have any conversation that we normally would have if we were just talking on the phone or FaceTiming. And he was one of those people where we'd have such deep conversations. We'd always ask ourselves, man, I wish this was recorded. So I'm really honored and appreciative to have him on. He's none other than Mr. Ty Ward. And by the way, it was his birthday earlier this week. And so he and I, as legends, because the truth is legends are born in July. So we're birthday bros as well. So good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, bro. It's been like a minute since we actually done this in a face-to-face kind of way. Because
yeah.
Your life changed up. My life changed up.
I had to get up and move.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's crazy.
Yeah. But it's interestingly enough, right? When I moved to LA, you were already there. And I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a crazy story about, I think, the flow of life and sort of how sometimes we can be in the stream or out of the stream. And it's really up to us. It's our choice. So the flow of life took me to LA. A lot of people always ask me, they're like, why'd you move out to LA? And I'm like, man, I think a lot of people are very comfortable with sort of concluding a single factor why they did anything. But for me, I was just, the only thing I can always say is life, just following life, in the feeling of that. So it took me out to LA, had no idea you were out here. I think we bumped into each other. I think the universe put us in each other's path 3 or 4 different times before we were finally yo, actually take my number. Let's actually hang out and reconnect, because it was over the span of 2 years that we would just periodically bump into each other. And we hadn't seen each other before that since just after college.
Yeah. So added more context to that. So Ty and I actually went to college together. And so that's when we created our friendship. And then Ty came up, you came up to Boston one time. I think it was in 2009. Was it 2010? I forget. But one of those years you had come up.
One of those.
Yeah. And hung out. And then we saw each other again during some reunion back down at Philadelphia University.
We did it was the bike race.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, bike race. Yep. And then And so we went to Philadelphia University, which is now Thomas Jefferson University. For those people. And so we were in Philly. You actually grew up in Philly,
Yep.
right? So
born and raised West Philadelphia.
making the move to LA was a big deal, you know?
It was, man. It was. And funny enough, I don't think I thought about how big of a deal it was back then. I think about it now in retrospect because I'm like, yo, I'm one of the few people that I knew. Actually, okay, let me take a step back. I'm the only person from my neighborhood that actually finished like and got like more than a high school diploma. I'm definitely the only person from my neighborhood that actually moved outside of like where we lived in quite a big way. The only person in my high school that did that. It's so weird, like looking back and being like, I don't know what put me on that path, but like literally I just decided a seed got planted in my head like a virus. And next thing I know, I'm like, I need to leave Philadelphia. And I didn't know why or where I was going. I had no plan in a sense, right? Like I have always struggled with making super long form plans because I'm one of those people that I actually thrive in spontaneity and in like, you know, the unknown. Whereas I know a lot of people that like kind of detraction that kind of scares them. For me, it actually lights me up and it brings me more present. So I've learned that now, you know, at the age of 38, I've learned that you do like I don't need to plan everything out. But back then I didn't know that. So like it was like kind of crazy because I remember everybody was like, so you're gonna move to LA? What are you gonna do for a job? Isn't it expensive out there? Where are you gonna live? And I was like, I'm gonna do the same thing I did when we left college. Because when we left college, we had all the same doubts, all the same insecurities, all the same unknowns. I'm just gonna figure it out, right? And so yeah, it was a huge deal because like I didn't know anybody except for like a couple more transient friends. I knew nobody that lived out here.
Yeah.
And I was all right, but that's where I'm gonna go. All the way across the map.
All the way, bro. All the way.
Myself, basically, except for like a small handful of people, and obviously you, but I didn't know that then.
Yeah. Like we didn't realize what happened until I was walking out of the Misfit in Santa Monica. And I think it was you and your mom. I think your mom was there. And you guys were having food outside.
I was gonna say you were walking out, we were eating outside.
Yeah. And so it was like, oh wow, like this is crazy. You know, good to see you. Like we'll definitely catch up, you know. In my mind, I'm thinking, you know, we're still friends on Facebook. I'll hit him up that way. That never happened. Then we saw each other. I think it was on Second Street. The Second Street?
Actually, no. That
or Main Street,
Culver City.
Oh yes, Culver City, right at that restaurant with the loft space. I forget the name, but once again, I was walking out into an Uber. You were walking in, right, and it was kind of like this is crazy. And then the next time it was on Main Street. I remember we ran each other on Main Street, and they were like, okay.
That time in Culver City, I was with a girl who later you were like, dude, I knew the second that I saw you with her, she wasn't for you. And it was funny because like, boy, has nothing ever been so true. I'm still in contact with her. Like we're still cool. Well, I would say we're still cool. We don't continue to contact each other often, but like, that was just one of those stages where I feel like life had to throw me towards something that wasn't it, but it was like hell of a practice shot. You know what I mean? Like but I remember we again, that was one of those moments where I'm like, I'm out on a date. You were out with some friends, and it was like, I think that wasn't even the last time. I was like, yo, and I told her, I was like, yes, my boy Thomas, like blah, blah, blah. And then like literally tabula rasa, I was like, all right, back in this moment. And then I completely forgot. And then we bumped into each other again on Main Street, which, funny enough, is the same name of the street where we spent a lot of our time in college in Philadelphia.
Yep, that's right.
Isn't that crazy?
That's so true. Yeah, because you know, we in Manayunk, I mean, that was the place where we could go all over the place. We were hitting up Manayunk Sport and is it not Sports? Manayunk, but the pub,
Sport and Social,
Sapphire. We did that a couple of times. Kildare's,
whatever that was at the end of Tonic. Main Street. Always, it was Tonic, and then it was something else, and then it was something else.
We cleaned up pretty good on that street, you know. And so running each other there, and then it was like, okay, we gotta connect, and then it's been amazing since. But I would love, you know, people to get more. I mean, before the inside jokes start rolling in, like, why don't you share a little bit about, like, you know, who is Ty Ward? Because there's so many dimensions that we can get into. We can get into the creative part of it. We can get into the, you know, just, yeah. Why don't you just share a little bit about who Ty Ward is?
Man, okay. Who am I? I would say at my core, I am a forever optimist. That's the first thing to know about me. I'm a big kid. I'm a dreamer, but as much as I love dreaming, I love doing and moving toward those dreams. And I would say I'm a bit eccentric in the sense of, I usually joke when people say, like, what do you like? Like, what are the things that you're into? And I'm like, it'd be faster if I made a list of the things that I don't like. And it's a very short list. It's like I'm very open. The one thing you said to me, I remember, and this always stuck with me, and I describe myself as this now, is like, I am forever willing. Forever willing. Like, just willing to show up to new things, willing to show up to old things, willing to go through challenges, willing to learn new things, willing to accept victories and successes, but also willing to accept some L's. And I'm a nature boy, free spirit. I'm a lot of things. And actually, funny enough, that's why my handle is Here's the Guy, because, you know, it was a joke when I was a musician, when I'm still a musician, but when I was like actually actively performing, it was like, what do you need? I dance, I sing, I write, I rap. You know, like, what do you need? I'm the guy. I do graphic design. Like, there's just been so many things that I've been into and have learned from and taken those learnings to the next thing. I would say at my core, I'm also an adventurist. I love a good adventure. I think that's behind every single thing that I do. It's like the adventure piece that draws me into it, which is probably why I don't always like to plan things, because you can easily turn your day into an adventure if you plan a little less.
Yeah, that's true. I've been embracing more spontaneity, or planning spontaneity, right? Which kind of sounds crazy, but just, you know, planning out the space for spontaneous things to happen, right? And that has significantly enhanced the joy and the fun I've been having this summer, right? And so it's something I'm holding on to. And yeah, man, I mean, you know, so for those who don't know, you know, Philadelphia University was a school that was known predominantly for fashion design, but for all different types of design: interior design, graphic design, digital design, fashion merchandising. And so, you know, when I talk about the creative element, that's kind of where we're coming from. But I also know that I can't sing. You know, and, you know, Ty, to give you a picture of what it was like when we would hang out, you know, Ty would be that guy that would create a soundtrack for your life. You know, we'd walk around and we go through, you know, the quad or in some areas, and he's just singing and loving life, and it literally sounds like it's just a soundtrack playing like it's a movie of your life. And it was, and obviously, like, it just drew a lot of attention. And, you know, I think naturally it was cool because we fed off each other. Like, we were both willing, we have charisma, we can actually hold conversation. So it was actually kind of fun to be at that school and be able to have the connections and the conversations that we were able to have, because not only were we cool with, you know, people on campus, we actually had good relationships with even with faculty, right? And yeah, you know, having lunch and with the, you know, the president of the university sometimes, you know, like, it was a good time. I really enjoyed that.
And I throw out there, so many of those things, man, we didn't actually like plan. Like, there'd be so many times where we would just end up at a lunch and like the president of the school was there, or like, because of different, like, I don't know if you remember this, but like at one point, once I moved on campus, I tried to join every damn student group. I was in a business fraternity. I was in like the like basically the group that all the Black kids joined. I was in the ACA, which is the Asian Cultural Association. I was like literally a part of everything. I even sang for the I used to sing the national anthems for the women's lacrosse and women's volleyball team, and even the men's basketball team sometimes when they had like bigger games. And it was was always this sort of like, you never knew what anything was going to amount to. And we talk about this a lot, by the way, not holding on to the outcome, not being stuck on the outcome, the objectivity of the outcome. And I feel like college encapsulates a time when many, not all, but many have that sort of lack of specificity on the outcome and are just more down for the ride. And I feel like that was the thing that I feel we united on the most. One thing I picked up on you when we were both in college was like, you had this energy like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna just be here and I'm just gonna figure that shit out while I go. And regardless of how things went, you were like, I'm gonna have a good time. Like, I remember there'd be moments where when you look back, you're like, yo, we've been through some embarrassing stuff. And the one thing I always remember was you were just like literally just it's fine.
It's true. Yeah, and here's the truth. I did have no idea what I was doing. You know, like I didn't know what was going to happen or not happen, but I'd gotten to a place in my life where if I didn't give myself the shot of like seeing what would happen, then I'd be going back to the type of guy that I didn't want to be, right? Which was shy or afraid of interaction or taking risks, you know, like I didn't want to be the class clown. I didn't want to be the most popular person. I just wanted to be someone who was acknowledged, you know, as a part of, right? Yeah. Not as the guy or a guy, but just like a part of a group, a part of, you know, collective. And little did I know that that was something that would become an obsession. But at the time it was innocent. Right. Because I just was willing to do whatever, you know, and whatever. Right. Like, we won't share all the stories, but
whatever. Like,
it was whatever, you know,
like truth or dare champion right here.
Yeah. You know, like just, I mean, I remember, we won't go deep into the story, but remember that instant date I just like took up that one day. And I was like, I'm just going to meet her and we're just going to go on a date.
And I remember thinking, I'm like, so this was back when I feel like back in school, I felt terrible with women, bro. Okay. I felt like I could chat any girl up, but when it came to like closing, I was garbage. And so I remember thinking, I'm like, he's just going to go out on this date with this girl. Like what? That's like, for me, that felt so like unapproachable for me. And I remember
I met her like, I don't know, 2 days prior. Like it was just, you know, and she was, I forget if she was part of the student, doesn't matter, but and we met up at the pub. And that was a good time. You know, but that was one of those experiences that I'd never had before, but was willing to see what was possible. Right. Because the truth is, at that time, as much as I wanted to go for it, I didn't feel confident enough to feel like she would be into me like that. Right. Like that's one of the things that kind of was going on behind the scenes. Like I was willing to push myself to better myself, but I didn't think that I was confident enough or attractive enough or brought enough to the table to warrant her being attracted to me. So
you have Scion though.
That's true. That's true. I forgot about that. I had the car.
Sir.
That car did help a lot too. So at the time,
I was on foot, bro. I was hoofing it on ankles, man.
Yeah. Well, we whip around together too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
I remember
everything.
Yeah. But I remember those moments where I would quote unquote get the girl, or we would have this opportunity presented in front of us. And it wasn't like I was surprised, because I wasn't surprised from the place of, well, I put myself in position for this to happen and I worked on it. So the fact that it worked out is great and what should have happened. But on the back end, it was kind of like, like what did I do to deserve this beyond just, I kind of pieced it together, right? Like if I knew inherently the process of attracting women and I executed that process, okay, like that makes sense, right? Like if there's an expectation that if you do this A, B, C, and then D happens, like I can logically connect with that. But emotionally, internally, and we'll get into this too, but like I didn't think that I was like that good looking or attractive or in shape or anything like that in comparison to other people that, you know, were around us, you know, for
Yeah.
example, right?
Sure.
And so it was a really interesting thing because I felt like I was always punching above my weight class, you know? But
I
it
feel
was
like
fun.
good discipline, though. That's the thing I think I take from it, because
Yeah.
I often equate that to why there are a lot of risks that we were willing to and are still willing to take,
Mm-hmm.
because when you make punching above, or the feeling, because I see things very different, right? Like
Yeah.
there is no such thing as punching above your weight class, in my opinion. You
Mm-hmm.
might be punching you might be punching outside of what you believe is capable for you, but that's just a belief. And the quickest thing that you can change, believe it or not, is your mind. You really can't change your circumstances too fast, but you
It's
can
true.
change your mind pretty quickly. But so we always, I think, being able to work within that space of feeling like you're punching above your weight, regardless of whether or not it's true, I think there's something super magic in that, because like it
Yeah.
allows you to be okay with feeling lost, feeling scared, feeling like you might be the stupidest person in the room, feeling like you might really not just be getting it, and still move forward. It's like I equate it to almost like in fitness. One of the things I always remember, which I felt was like a huge asset, was active recovery, right? Like the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
ability to feel tired but recover while you keep going. And
Yeah.
I look at punching up that sort of ability to continue to operate in a state of feeling like you're punching above your weight as a similar thing psychologically, right? It's the
Yeah.
ability to feel overwhelmed or feel out in your depths, but still keep going.
Yeah. That's what it was for me, right? I felt so out of my realm, but I knew this was where I needed to push myself, right? And so I'm constantly and I remember having a conversation recently and I look back and I think that version of me that was 19, 20, 21 doing the stupid shit that we did, right? And the fun stuff that we did too,
Mhm.
because it taught me that it was possible to always push myself beyond what I thought I was capable of, even if I didn't feel confident in my abilities, right? Like that was the big takeaway for me. So, but and and it made me feel more confident. And then moving forward, and when I started coaching people, like people always tell me like you need to be confident to do this, and I was like, no, you actually don't. Confidence is never a requirement for you to do something. It actually
Yeah.
comes as a result of doing something. But what you're really looking for is the willingness, right?
Yes.
And the willingness to do something will lead to a form of confidence of some kind, right? And when done repeatedly, then you get to that level. So fast forward to today, I'm still, looking to break through a glass ceiling, so to speak, in so many areas of my life. And while I may have I also have a different perspective on confidence, because now the confidence that I have due to my history of what I've done previously to break through previous glass ceilings that are now floors beneath me, levels beneath me, I have the confidence that this process can work itself out, right? Like whatever ceiling I'm looking to break through next, I'm going to break through it. It's just a matter of time. It's not a matter of if. Whereas back
Right.
then, it wasn't when, it was if,
Mm.
right? And so I feel like, confidence has matured over time. Now, of course, it came through various stages of struggle and heartbreak and darkness, and I remember you were there for me during that previous time. In fact, you were there the night before I got sober.
Yeah.
which was,
I remember that night vividly, actually.
Yeah. And I think about that night for sure, because I was in and out of blackout that that day. And I think I convinced you that it was a good idea to go back home. And I think I vaguely remember you trying to talk me out of it.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Right. And I kind of wonder, just from time to time, it's not often at all, but I wonder, like, what would have happened if it didn't play out that way, right? Like, if I didn't have that moment of being dropped off, having that, collision with my wife that then triggered me to then, black out on my way to a hotel, as opposed to just crashing on your couch down the street, And so, but I mean, I digress from that part, but like,
well, I was just going to say, I think those crashes, I think about this a lot, actually, because I've had this dichotomy that I've held in my mind quite a bit, where I love challenge, but I hate when things are hard.
Yeah.
And it's hard to square that up sometimes, right? Because you're just like, and it's helped me to realize that hard and challenge are not the same thing, and they're not mutually exclusive. So like, and I think oftentimes we conflate that, because we were told, like, no pain, no gain, work harder. And what I've realized is that we've grown this obsession with hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we take the hard road often, but hard is something that I look at hard like traffic, right? It's in between you and actually the things that are challenging for you. Yeah. Hard is like addictions can be challenging, but like overcoming an addiction can be challenging, but an addiction is hard.
Yeah.
It's just in the fucking way. Yeah. And I think when you asked that question about, I wonder what would have happened if I had just gone, basically taken your advice. And I think one of the reasons why I didn't push that night, and I was kind of just like, well, every man walks their road, is because what would have happened is you would have gone the hard route.
Yeah.
The route of continuing to be able to hide.
Mm-hmm.
Hiding is hard. It doesn't grow you. It doesn't prepare you for more. It doesn't beckon you forward. It actually calls you backwards. It makes you smaller. So hiding is actually hard. And you would have been able to hide, and things would have continued to be hard. But instead, unbeknownst to you, you stumbled right into what was one of the most important challenges of your life at that point.
Yeah.
Something that would have that did open the door to tremendous opportunity and growth.
Well said, man. Like it's crazy, right? Because even the way, as I'm listening to you talk about hard, it's very clear that we do have a distorted view on what hard really is, right? The hard is, I think there's hard, harder, and then there's hardest, right? And I think, like you said, addiction is hard. To ignore it is harder, and to face it is hardest, right? And people will live in the hard because we kind of see hard work, for example, as something to glorify.
Yeah.
Right. And then the harder is actually just a result of you ignoring the truth. Right. And so life is harder because you're just avoiding it. Right. And then the hardest thing is to face it head on. So, for me, I didn't do anything other than make that choice. And then what happened after that was God's will. Right. God took care of me in that moment. Right. And relieved the obsession from me from day one, which I'm so grateful for.
Yeah.
But for those who might be listening or checking this out and not thinking, well, I'm not an addict, I can't relate to that. Well, what about if you wanted to lose weight and you wanted to have 6-pack abs in 90 days? Right. But the truth is, like, you actually are just an unhealthy person. right? You go to the doctor, your cholesterol is high, your blood pressure is high, your BMI is high, you're overweight by a certain measure, right? Like massive amounts of body fat, right? Like heart issues. Abs in 90 days is probably not going to be the solution, right? The solution is actually a complete lifestyle change. And that's the hardest thing to do, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, you can do abs in 90 days. That's hard to do, right? But you probably won't do that either because it's too hard. So you'll do the harder thing, which is ignore it and continue to live a harder life, because those issues will get worse. But the hardest thing to do is to say, you know what, like I want to live longer and I need to make permanent lifestyle changes that are going to exceed beyond 90 days. Mm-hmm. And so I'll give you an example very recently for me. Because of the lifestyle that I was living in my 20s and into my early 30s, I had significantly high blood pressure. And my doctor at the time, Dr. J, never forget him, awesome doctor, he told me if I don't take medication and I don't change, like I could die very young. In the state that I was in, I expected to die young. I didn't really think that I had such a big future. But I took the medication, right? Because that was my version of harder, and so I decided to do that. And then, when I got sober, I noticed that I was living a healthier life, which obviously was one of the hardest things to face. But then as I noticed that I was getting in healthier shape, my cholesterol was lowering. I also noticed my blood pressure was lowering. So talk about willingness. The question popped up. Like, could I lower my blood pressure enough to not take the medication anymore? Now, you say this, and 99 times out of 100, people are going to tell you once you're on forever, especially if you have family history of high blood pressure, right? Which is common with Black families. And so, I'm the willingness to look and see, right? Why couldn't I be the one? Why couldn't I be the one that gets to come off? So I went and talked to a doctor, and he said, technically, yeah, you could come off. Like, you're young enough and your lifestyle has changed. You're gonna have to make some more changes. But if you're willing to, this is the word, but if you're willing to do that, yeah, there could be a process of you getting off. And that's all I needed to hear, right? Mm-hmm. I could be the one, right? And so I think it was 3.5 months ago, my medication stopped, and I was measuring my blood pressure. My blood pressure was totally fine. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm done. Maybe I don't need to take the medication anymore, right? Because I've done the hardest thing, which was face my lifestyle and make the necessary changes, not just in 90 days or in 180 days. I've been changing my lifestyle for 5+ years now. And yeah, like I'm at the point now where I'm happy to report that like 3.5 months off blood pressure medication, and I still have normal, as defined by American Heart Association, normal blood pressure. And for me, like, it's another chapter in my desire to change what it means to change the future of generations to come on my branch of the family tree. Yeah. Right. And so when people talk and say, oh, that's too hard. No, hard is like trying to find a quick fix. And then thinking that like that's going to work, or that you're committed enough to even do that hard thing, that quick fix. Harder is ignoring it and seeing the casualties that take place by ignoring the issue. The hardest thing is actually facing it and being realistic about the longevity of what it's going to take to live the life that you want. No one is willing to talk about this. Like, this is why I always talk about 1% growth every single day. Like, people think 1% is nothing. 1% is everything. And if you really allow yourself, and once again, be willing, you can do that. Now I've talked way too much, but I wanted to share that. But my question for you, because we had talked about what you would like to talk about more. And by the way, guys, I am here with my best friend and one of my most favorite clients, Ty Ward. And we're just talking about all kinds of stuff. But now we're transitioning into a conversation that he wanted to have and bring it to you guys, which is about worthiness. And, you know, when I sense, and I work with clients, and it's not that they don't believe that they can do it. I think that's not necessarily always, I don't think that's always true. I think there's people who believe that they can do the thing that they want to do, but they don't feel worthy of the outcome that they're shooting for, right? They can do the work. They can get the promotion. They can lose the weight, but are they worthy of becoming are they worthy of the person and the responsibility that comes with achieving those results? And I think that's kind of an underlying layer with a lot of people that I work with that are shooting for their goals and then have a hard time getting there. But yeah. What was your reason to bring up around worthiness?
So I've been thinking a lot about it recently. I feel like we go through stages in our life, stages of becoming, and willingness is one of those stages, right? Like I think about so let's roll it back, you know, when I was incredibly overweight, and I remember the thing that I had to surmount first before I could ever even think about losing weight was going from being defeated and frustrated to, at minimum, being willing to try again, being willing to try something new, being willing to keep going forward, even when I, you know, didn't feel like it or didn't feel like it was even working sometimes. And so I spent a lot of time, I think, in the realm of willing. And we do that when we're younger, right? That's why we take dares and we do daring things, because I really think we're trying to prove to ourselves that we are willing to try, right? But beyond willing, once you achieve that thing that you think that you want, or you get close to achieving it, I think the main thing that holds us apart from truly having the things that we want is sense of being worthy of it. And this came into my thought space at a time in my life a couple years ago during COVID, where some crypto investments that I had made had worked out really well. I didn't realize that they had worked out well, but my friend who instructed me to do it, but also was doing it himself, he calls me up and he's like, dude, you got to check it out right now. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I check it out and I look at it, and suddenly, and it's funny now that I say this. It's funny now that I say this, how normal this is going to feel. Normal this feels to me to even talk about this sum of money. But I looked in the account that I had where the investment was, and I had like $750,000, and it still had up and to the right potential. And I started envisioning, because I'm a huge believer in like manifestation, and not necessarily in I feel like that word is unfortunate because it's like God. It is a word that has been draped in so many different cloth that it means so many different things to so many different people. So you really can't talk about it without there being some sort of prejudice from the audience as to what they think I mean. But what I mean about manifestation is like the ability to move toward and actually physically experience that which you want, right? And it starts with sort of like daydreaming, and then daydreaming goes into being willing to take a step toward it, willing to want it even when you don't see it yet. But then there has to come this crossover where you feel worthy of actually accepting it when you're standing on its doorstep, even if you don't feel like you are, because many times we're closer to things than we realize. But like when you feel like you can have it. And one thing that happened for me recently was, so when I had that moment where I looked at my bank account and I'm like, holy shit, like I immediately didn't feel worthy, which is funny because the physical manifestation had arrived.
Yeah.
And I did not feel worthy of it. And then immediately started thinking about losing it.
Yeah.
So, right. So like,
Mhm.
that's the funny trick. And I know that all of us have been there at any stage of achievement where you start to worry about losing it.
Yeah.
Because in that worry, a lot of people think is just, to whom much is given, much is expected. That's very true. But that feeling of playing to not lose is a shitty one, and it is only played by people that do not feel worthy of the win.
Yeah. I love that point, because that line was said, I think either you or I said it when we were at 10 Speed Coffee, and I was just introducing the one up, what we knew as the one up effect back then. Because that was the idea, right? Like,
yeah,
we're all playing a game, whether we know it or not. And the game that you feel like you might be winning, if you're not feeling fulfilled or happy, chances are you're playing someone else's game and they're winning.
Yep.
So if they're winning on your accord, then you're actually losing, right? And so you have to decide if you want to continue playing that game or play your own game and play to win. But then we talked about how the idea of playing to not lose. So for those who love analogies, here's one that kind of compares the playing to win, the playing to lose. I think football and basketball are probably the two most obvious examples, but football is more intense, because that team prepares for an entire week on how to beat their Sunday opponent, and they only prepare for ways to beat that opponent, right? So when you go out and you execute the plan and it works really well, chances are you're going to be up big, right? And we've seen this on TV. Teams go up by 4 or 5 touchdowns at the half because their execution of their plan was flawless. And then they come out in the second half, and all of a sudden you're like, what's going on? Well, they're not putting up points like that. And all of a sudden the other team is making a comeback. Now you find yourself in the fourth quarter and it's a 1-score game. Yep. What happened? Well, they shifted their strategy from playing to win, which they had practiced all week to do, to now playing to lose, which they didn't practice at all. Right. They did not playing to not lose, right? Which they didn't practice at all. They don't know how to play to not lose. And when you really think about it, no coach nor an athlete prepares to not lose.
It literally, as you say it sounds like an impossibility.
Yeah, right? Like no one takes time out of their strategy with their team and as a coach to strategize how to not lose. It's win, right? So this whole idea of, this is what it brings back. I think it's a 2007 or 2009 Patriot team that everyone hated because they blew out every team that they played, right? It was the 18-1 team that lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl.
I love that you bring this up, being a Pats fan. I love it. It's not
well, I'm still salty about that Super Bowl loss, but once again, amazing defensive game plan by the Giants. I got to give them their flowers, right? But leading up to that, they were blowing everyone out and they were not letting up. And people were getting upset about that because, it'd be in the fourth quarter and Tom Brady's still throwing bombs to Randy Moss and they're still scoring touchdowns and people were pissed. And it's like, well, if they were to play any other way, they would mess up, right? So they only played the way that they had prepared the entire week, which I believe every team should do. And so this whole idea of, letting up when you're up big and all that stuff, I think it's nonsense. If you have a strategy that works, you keep working it. You can pull players, but you don't change the strategy, right? The entire team has practiced the strategy. Just put, your backup players in and execute the same strategy and see if it gets stopped. Anyway, I digress. That's a little bit of a rant. But the point is, most of us come up with a plan of how to win something, right? And then the moment we get close or even get that thing, because of what you said, fear of loss, and I
Mm-hmm.
think the deeper issue is a sense of deeper unworthiness.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, we naturally shift to a position that we don't want to lose. Now, what ends up happening is in real life, energetically, you go from manifestation to rejection, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not worthy of this. I don't know if I'm ready for this, right? Like even this behavior here, right? It's like, like
Mm-hmm.
you're going from this to like, right? And all of a sudden it's like, okay, cool. Like we'll go that way.
Yeah.
If you're talking to a girl, oh, okay, like you're not interested, or oh, that was kind of creepy, I'm gonna go elsewhere.
Yep.
Right. You're waiting for a promotion. Oh, we gave it to Bob, actually.
Yep.
It didn't seem like you were ready for that.
And
Like
you're
all these
Bob,
things.
so lazy. How the hell did Bob get this promotion instead of me? Because when it counted, Bob was trying to win.
Exactly. And so I love this topic because I feel like worthiness can be triggered two different ways, right? One is internally, which I believe is the most important place for it to trigger, is to really wrap your head around your own worthiness. And we can talk about ways to do that. And then the other part, which I think gets discounted because people think that's not okay, but I think it's okay as long as it's not relied on, which is external triggers.
Yeah.
Right? When you do get the thing that you want, and then you finally realize, yeah, I worked for this. I earned this. I deserve this. I am worthy of this. Because then right after is, what else am I worthy of? And all of a sudden now expansion begins. And sometimes we can have those external triggers take place when done the right way. And you just experienced that yourself.
Yeah. I was going to say, I love the idea of allowing for physical or external triggers to also in times when appropriate instill a sense of worthiness in you. I love for that because it gets down to the true root that a lot of people, especially people that are practicing humility, suffer from, which is like, we are meant. This is what for me manifestation is. It is the absolute truth that we are meant to experience the validation of our internal reality externally. We are meant to experience it that way. So while yes, you must have a sense of worth and worthiness that precedes the outer validation, we must also wholeheartedly accept and dine in the external proof of it when it comes.
Yeah.
That is a part of the worthiness as well. It's almost like you have to have feedback. Life is feedback. In fact, it is the cornerstone of existence. The cornerstone of intelligence is feedback from one's environment, right?
Yep.
So, but that does not precede intelligence. Intelligence is, but the only way it thrives and grows and manifests and expands is through feedback. It must have a physical correspondence with its internal reality showing up in its external reality. And that continues to drive it forward. And so, yeah, I did have an experience with this, and it was a good experience because that first experience I was telling you about with the crypto thing, that was almost like the test drive. Because again, like I'm sitting in this moment where I'm like, yo, suddenly all this money that like literally, I remember back then. And like I said, it's funny now. And I love that it's so common. Like saying $750,000, my brain immediately was just like, yo, that's like it feels now like saying $750.
There you go.
But there was once upon a time where $750 felt like $750,000 to me, right? So that tells you right there, it's all relative based off of your feelings toward it. But at that time, 750,000 seemed outlandish that it could just show up like that. And then I shifted into like not wanting to lose it. And then I worked myself into a healthy detachment from it. And from that place of being detached, I started accepting it, right? And thinking of it as growing into more. And then that came the fundamental question, which I think is the question that we will all have to face in our lifetime at some point, God willing. But like, if you didn't have to work to make money, what would you do? Because so
Yeah.
many of us never even delve into that. We never even poke at that reality. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's the unwillingness to poke at that reality, the unwillingness to plan for its inevitability that keeps us separate from it. Because you
Yeah.
really do have to ask yourself, like, there's most of us, the vast majority of us, our daily activities are all around survival still. And what I mean by that is, I do this because it gets me this and I need this,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? But what if those needs, what if those were absolutely taken care of? It's not even a question anymore. What would you do then? And I remember thinking, like, some people answer this question poorly. They think that what they would do is nothing. They'll retire, or and those people are like the people that win the lottery and then destroy their lives. And it's not because they're bad people, or it's not because, God or the universe wants to punish people that, come into wealth really quickly, or it's not even that coming into wealth quickly within effortlessly is bad.
Yeah.
It's simply because and this is what I realized, we are here to do. We are here to take the worthiness that we have and apply it to multitude of situations. And so I realized, like, if and when I'm in that position where I no longer am working to earn money, the money is already, all the resources are taken care of. The new question I had was, what would I do? I watched my grandmother retire and it kind of destroyed her mind. She ended up having dementia, and it was a very quick decline. So there's this knowing inside of me that doing nothing is not life. It's not the thing that drives us to be alive. Working is also not the thing that drives us to be alive. Working is what drives us forward to make money. But beyond all that, what we really want is to be of value, to be worthy. And the fastest way I found to be worthy is to serve others. Because when I serve myself, right? When I focus on serving myself, first of all, I am a small self compared to the countless other selves that are out there. So when I whittle down my ability to only serve me, I handicap my true power, because I'm only using the amount of energy it takes to serve myself. And that's just not enough self to go around. You just don't need that much. You don't have enough of you to serve for it to really be fulfilling, for you to really feel worthy from doing that. And I realized, if I didn't, when I get to a place, and even before then, but especially if I was in a place where I didn't have to worry about serving myself, the only logical thing that made sense afterwards was to even more emphatically serve others. And that felt good. I was like, I want to move toward that. Like that feels great. And I felt myself no longer fight with the feeling of worthiness of what would happen or who I become or what it would be like to win fucking big, win huge, win in ways that, like, other people would look at and be like, I never thought that was possible. And then I started, why not me? Because I knew at that moment, with the great power that comes with winning that big, I had accepted the responsibility that comes with, to then know that my real goal is to serve others. And then that grew this sense of worthiness. And I was no longer like weird about things working out for me. In fact, I was like, fuck yes, things need to work out for me, because when they work out for me, I make sure that they work out for lots of others. And it's not like I'm going to give so much of myself that I wouldn't be able to, sustain myself. But it was just like this momentum. And that fast forwards to, remember I told you about how, like, that 750,000, I'm looking at that like, wow, well, that all went to shit. It all fell apart. It went away. And it didn't bother me one fucking bit, because I knew at that moment, I was just like, there's also this other thing that got into my head that I've never let go of, which is, if you shoot and miss, you did not miss your shot, because your shot is the shot that goes in.
Mm-hmm.
So when you shoot and miss, that was a practice shot only.
Yeah.
And so that 750 that just evaporated in thin air, that was a practice shot. And that told me that there was an even bigger bucket coming. And boy, did it come. Because then, I'm just busy working, doing my thing, being myself. My manager that I used to work with at Google comes up to me and he's like, hey, by the way, I started at this new place. Like, I really want you on my team because you're a Swiss Army knife, which is a really technical way of saying you are willing.
Yeah.
You are willing to serve in a numerous amount of ways that don't need to be in one strict lane, but like however it comes out. And he asked me to be on his team. And in the process of that, in taking that step, I quickly walked into a reality where I had more than enough resources to buy my first home in Los Angeles.
Which is a big deal.
It was a very big deal.
Very big deal.
And I didn't even allow myself to admit how much of a big deal it was because of how easy it came. The manifestation, it came easy, but that doesn't mean that the road up to it was without challenge. And that also helped me to be like, yo, things can be easy, but challenging at the same time. Like you can rise to your challenges with ease by being willing, and doing that over and over and over again builds a sense of worthiness inside of you. But it will still be challenged, because then once I got into the house and I'm in the house and I have more than enough funds left over to furnish the house. And I'm not talking like Amazon furniture. I'm talking like $15,000 couches and things like that. And I remember sitting in here and I felt that dark passenger sit next to me of worry of losing it. And that made me realize that I still had more work to do to unlock new levels of feeling of worthiness inside of me. Yeah. Because the worthiness, which I had been striving toward, had manifested. I got the external feedback, but my cup still felt like it wasn't full enough, because I hadn't upped my level of how worthy I felt internally to the next level. And so I'm standing there looking at it. My ego is standing there looking at all this and being like, how can we keep this up? Is this the best that we're ever going to have? Is this have we just peaked and now it's all downhill from here? And so I talk about worthiness because it's so important, because I don't think it's like a diploma that you just get. I think that we must, in our actions, in our decisions, in our rituals, what we are really doing is we are continually, in small or big ways, proving to ourselves over and over again, yes, I am worthy of all this abundance that has come in my way, all the abundance that I've already experienced, and so much more. But that's when you go to the gym to work out. You don't get the muscles because you worked out. You get the muscles because you feel worthy of it, because you've proven it to yourself every single day that you are worthy of it. When you practice something, you're not really just doing something. People think, oh, you do something over and over and over again, you just get better at it. Yes, but being good at something doesn't. There are tons of people that are great at a lot of stuff, but if they don't feel worthy at it, they're just going to self-sabotage. Being successful at something requires worthiness, and that worthiness is practiced little by little. Every single day, you get opportunities, limitless opportunities, to prove to yourself that you are worthy. And that's the game. That's the game. That's the game that Michael Jordan was playing instead of basketball out on the court.
Yeah, it's true. That's very true, right? I mean, I forget who was talking about it, but he was just playing a different game. Everyone was playing basketball. Jordan was playing a different game. And it was based on the worthiness, right? And I agree. I agree wholeheartedly, man. It's such a good story. I'm so glad you shared it, because there are levels to this, and you're going to be tested, and it's going to prepare you, as you said, for the next level. I don't even want to call it the real thing, because it feels final, but it's not. It's not final, right? Yeah, and it's not a linear path, right? It's just a part of the game. And the more willing, and one of my good friends had said this, the more you continue to practice willingness, the more qualified you'll become of opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't have had before, right? And I held on to that, and I still hold on. I sign on to that because that 1% willingness that I bump up each and every day leads to the next level. And I remember, and I talk about this plenty of times, you guys might be tired of hearing this, but when I did that segment at Steve Harvey's show back in, I think it was 2014, 2014. Yeah, I think it was 2014. And I crushed it, and I was celebrating on the rooftop bar in Chicago. I'll never forget the scene, you know, like that was a moment of crisis when it came to my worthiness, because I had everything that I thought I was supposed to have.
Yep.
In that moment: money, success, a little bit of fame. Had my wife, got married, right? Like a few months prior. And in that moment, I didn't feel worthy of sustaining it, right? Not worthy of having it, but worthy of sustaining it, right? Which then led to the question of whether or not I should have it, right? But at first it was, am I worthy of this responsibility? Can I maintain this, right? And
was it a fluke?
Yeah, it wasn't a fluke. Will I get got and outed as a fraud? Is this the best I got? Right? Have I peaked? You know, I was 29 years old. Did I peak at 29? That was a legitimate question, right? And I had none of those answers, and I was so overwhelmed. All I had in front of me was the drink that I just poured, and I just chugged it. Yeah. And I think in that moment, it just triggered the repetitive nature of wanting to avoid the true answer of that question, right? Which is, I don't know if I'm willing. I don't know if I'm worthy, but I want to be.
I'm willing. I don't know if I'm worthy, but I'm willing.
Yes, I want to be. And how do I become worthy? Well, willing. You have to be willing. And it always comes down to that, you know? And yeah, like for those who out there who, you know, have challenges, I think what Ty said, it was so profound. You know, things can be challenging and easeful and easy. The two can exist, right? You don't have to choose one or the other. And I think that often gets pushed. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Right? Like
for some getting out of bed in the morning is a challenge, right?
It's a challenge.
You find out who you really are when you press against that circadian rhythm, or circadian rhythm, and you ask it to stretch itself into a different shape than the one it's been used to. You can find new depths of self-loathing and even outward loathing when you're very tired and you're forcing yourself to get up. But it's the willingness to do it, and by being willing, you can find ease in it. Meaning, yeah, it's gonna suck. That's fine. But you, just as much as you can that easily say like, this sucks, you can also decide to be willing to change your fucking mind.
That's right.
To be like, this sucks, but I'm gonna make it better.
Yeah, that's right. And I think once again, it just comes down to that willingness to just push through, right? And to play to win and not play to, you know, not lose. Because the moment losing comes into the equation, no matter how you try to wrap it and put language around it,
it's the subject.
You're still talking about taking an L, right? Like no matter how you try to dress it up, you're still bringing in the possibility of an L being in your life. And so when you focus on playing to win, it doesn't always mean that you're going to win, right? But as Ty said, no game is won when you quit. No shot goes in that's not taken, right? So like it's just a part of what is required to do it. And you know, I had the amazing privilege of you being willing to, you know, work with me and get to those levels and really kind of optimize what we now know as the quest. And you know, the places that you were able to push yourself and get to, I mean, it was amazing to witness, because we started it pretty much like right when COVID started.
Yeah.
And it created such a great opportunity for all of us to like recreate ourselves, right? Not just you, but also for me, because I was doing the quest as well. And I still do to this day. And so to witness your transformation over the years, not even just like externally, the external part, that part's fun, right? You know, to go from studio to the house, you know, the place that you were staying in prior to get it. And then now you have your own house, right? Like that. If someone looked at that, they'd be like, wow, like that's crazy transformation. But, you know, internally and how you started to view yourself and then how it showed up in how you were showing up for other people, that for me was like the true magic that made me realize, oh shit, like Ty's is his trajectory has now taken on like that hockey stick curve. Like it's not just going like this, it's going like this, you know? Would you agree with that perspective as me kind of looking at it from the outside?
No, and it's yes, I would now. And it's funny because again, I think it's because I've always just who I am. You've known this about me. Like it's the reason I have humor. It's the reason I tell jokes and I'm always trying to be jovial and lighthearted because I like easy, but I also love challenge. And so in the process of that hockey stick curve transition, it didn't feel like it was happening because while I look back and I'm like, there were tons of challenges that I was facing at the moment, more challenges than I even was willing to admit at the time. But I took the easy road through my challenges, and I rose to them still, but like, I just didn't take it hard. You know, like I just wasn't, I wasn't often hard on myself. Like I can be very hard on myself. I have moments of it, but overwhelmingly, I try to be lighthearted with myself. I try to have humor. And I do remember because when we met in that cafe, I was at a pretty interesting crossroads because I realized that I wasn't happy. I had a lot of good things going on for me, but it didn't feel like it. And I wasn't even satisfied with my job. I think I was still at that point stuck in between mourning the loss of the idea of who I was going to be as a musician and not wanting to accept the identity that I had at the moment of working at Google, which crazy enough is a position that so many people would have like slayed somebody to get into. And me, I'm here, I'm sitting in that position and I'm just thinking about letting go of this person that I thought I was going to be. And through the quest, it helped me to realize that it is really not about what you're doing. It's the fruit is in how you are doing it. Because in the quest, you learn that you get to choose your character. Or as I like to say sometimes, first, before you can choose your character, you have to accept the character that you are today. And then once you accept that character, know that character, love that character, you actually find a bit of mastery in that character. And then you get to choose different ones. It's just like real video games. You got to main a character for a little bit before you get the mechanics and be like, you know what? I'm going to experiment now and try new characters. And it helped me to realize that there is an importance in rituals and things that I used to see as mundane. There's a deep rooted importance in that. Simple things like I remember when we came up with the idea, and again, this by the way is taking the easy route to rise to your challenges.
Yeah.
One of the things in the quest was the daily non-negotiables was like you wake up early before whatever time you set and you make your fucking bed. Why? Why? Because you decided to, and by following through with that, you send a little bit of signal to your brain that you are worthy because you do the things that you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
And even those little tiny fundamental building blocks, for me, I still find so much. I find so much joy in building rituals based off of tiny fundamental building blocks. And when you start to do that, you start to see that that's really how everything is won. Like athletes are incredible, not because of the incredible things that they do, but because they're always rooted in fundamentals, right? And I used to find fundamentals boring, dude. as a person that loves, as I described myself from the beginning, like I love adventure. I don't like to plan things. I like spontaneity. Fundamentals are a snooze fest for somebody like that. But I also was willing to change my mind. And I found this beauty in these sort of benign, seemingly benign everyday moments, like wake up and make your bed, right? And even some days I don't make my bed, but that is the objective point of it. The real point of it is knowing that the real power is in finding worthiness inside of yourself by meeting certain, and they can be even baseline little agreements with yourself and making them non-negotiables. So now my daily sort of rituals, my daily quest, it looks very different than what it used to look like.
Yeah.
It actually looks so much more easeful, but you find challenges in it. Like I do, you know, I work out 3 times a week. I do yoga on the days that I don't work out. I meditate twice daily. And there are so many other little things that I do that I don't even think of now, but those are like my core bedrock staples. And it's funny, it's not even a lot of things, right? But there is even challenge in consistency alone. And you get rising to that challenge every day. You find just little bits of worthiness. And so, yeah, I would say, then again, once you realize your self-worth, you realize how much you have to give to others and how it really can't just be about giving it to yourself. Because you got way more, when you find your self-worth, you got way more to give than yourself could even want. You're just spilling over with it. So you start to want to give it to other people. And then I realize, like, in joining the groups, joining the calls, talking with the guys, like having these heartfelt conversations, having other people look at you and see the you that you've always been trying to be, and see that person and admire that person and see value in talking to that person and learning from that person. And in the process of that, you're serving. Like this feedback loop that just grows you and grows you and grows you. And I feel like that's what I got out of it more than any of the material things that are continuing to manifest around me. It, like that value of like purpose. And I think we make purpose this really big grand thing. And it really doesn't have to be. It really doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Purpose does not have to be massive to be purposeful.
Exactly. Yeah. And purpose can change, right? Like you live long enough, you will have many purposes in life. But I love that, man. I mean, it's never about what you do. We live in a world where people are valued based on what they do. And ultimately, you will never be capable of what you think you can do until you become a person who believes is worthy of doing those things. And the quest was always about, who do you become?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Who do you become as a result of this process? Who are you trying to become? What is the character that you're looking to become at the end of this quest? Right? Like we're the character that we are when we start this, but we can choose how this character evolves as we play this game called life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always about who you become. I remember I still make the bed. And you know what's funny? As you were talking about it, been making my bed every day for, I don't know, 7 years. And maybe out of the 7 years I've been doing this, there might have been 30 days where I've gone into that bed where it was made. Like, I'm the first one to get out of bed, and I'm the last one to get in bed. So
Mm-hmm.
I actually never really get the satisfaction of approaching a made bed, even though I make it, right? Like I make the bed in the morning, and then when I go in, my wife's already in there. So it's not, obviously perfectly made, right? And I just go to bed. So it's rare that I even get the experience of my own doing.
Yeah.
But it was never about that. It was exactly what you said. It was one, it was to get an easy win, right? Based on I do what I say.
Notice that word easy again.
Yeah.
Just calling out. Keep going, but I'm just calling out. Easy is a part of it.
Yeah, right. Easy win. I do what I say. And it's something that makes me feel like I have worthiness of a well-made bed, representative of a room, right? Like I could never, I always go back to like the hotel experience. There's nothing like going into a hotel room and you see the bed perfectly made, right? Like, or if you're staying there multiple nights and you leave the room as is and you come back and the room's, it's like perfectly made. It feels amazing. That was the experience that I wanted to create by making my bed, right? I wanted to be that person who has a well-made bed. That was it, right? And it's funny because I rarely get to experience that well-made bed, right? But it just shows how little that matters, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to be that person, and that just triggered a whole other sequence of other things that I do, and it also evolves. I'm not doing the same stuff that I used to do either. But it makes a difference. Yeah, man.
The outcome really, I mean, I'm not going to say the outcome doesn't matter, because that goes back to our original piece of like, you are meant to experience your internal reality externally as well. So the outcome does matter, but it matters like 10%, because, and it's like, I think about it like this, like every athlete is an athlete because they want to win, and they're a successful athlete when they win. But the funny part about winning is that it is not a destination, because when there is no final win for every athlete that has played their last game, win or lose, and it could be, they could go out on a win, there's generally some challenge of depression or reinventing their ego, their identity at the other end, because we are never here trying to get it done. It's never about the outcome.
Yeah.
That's 10% of it, right? Like the outcome just gives us a target to paint and a direction to point in. But we go for the becoming. We go for the journey of continuing unfolding a deeper and bigger understanding of your worth.
Yeah. And I just want to point out, because I want to end with that. What you just said is the epitome of what I believe is what it means to become iconic. You know, when you are focusing on becoming and becoming and becoming and getting to a place where you can become for others, and people can see your journey and your growth and your effort and your magic and your essence, and have appreciation, admiration, respect, and they want to help carry that along, maybe even beyond your years. That to me is what an iconic person does.
Yeah.
Right. And so I so appreciate you sharing that, bro. It is always, I mean, we could talk for forever, and I know we got things to do, but I love you, bro, and I so appreciate always these conversations. I'm gonna have you on to continue these conversations, because they're so important. And you know, I mean, there's plenty of people I can go deep with, but we know each other on such a deeper level than anyone else that I know. So it makes it easy, right? You know, so
word again.
If there's ever a topic you want to talk about that I think you think is going to be great for someone to listen to, you let me know. We'll pull you on.
Our next topic, I'm a foreshadow, is all about easy. I want to demystify what it is and how good it is, and how it is actually the virtuous path to go on. Because I've been held down by the false premise that there's some virtue in the hard way, and that there's something that will lead you to damnation by taking the easy way. And I want to demystify what we think about when we say the easy way versus the hard way, because I believe that at some point we got it flipped, and we don't realize that ease is the sign that this is the way to go.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, I agree. I think there's an inversion between hard and easy. and we could talk about the duality and essentially the oneness of the experience, you know? So I love that, because in a world where everyone's talking about hard work and working hard, and you know, it's not, you didn't earn it unless it was hard, right? Like, what if that wasn't the case? What if you didn't earn it if it wasn't easy?
Right.
What would that look like?
Like, it's not hard to breathe, but it's the most vital thing that you have to do. It's the most important thing that you will do to be alive. And it's not hard. When it's hard, it's a problem.
Exactly, right? Like, you don't know how hard it is to breathe until you actually can't breathe, right? So that's a great key. That's a great example. And how do you live a life where it's as easy as your breath, right? Ooh. Like that. That is a great conversation. We're actually gonna have that next month. Yes, I love it, bro.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, as we wrap up, tell people where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at Here's the Guy. That's HERESTHEGUY. It's also my email address, here's the guy @gmail.com. And those are the real main social places that I connect on. I don't really try to do too much, because you don't need to. It's easy for me. So find me on those two places. And if there is more to come, you'll know it from there. Awesome, bro. Well, once again, I appreciate you, bro. Stay on. We'll talk in a bit, but absolutely, thanks for being on the podcast. We finally did it, bro. We finally did it. We talked about this, so I want to thank you for having me too, man. It's a privilege to be able to give, and I appreciate you allowing me that privilege. Yeah, you got it, man. Anytime. All right, we'll talk in a bit. Well, guys, I so hope you guys appreciated this conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you got anything out of it, please comment below. Let me know what your takeaways are. If you have any questions for me or Ty, you can comment. I love post-show activity. Also, if you like the episode, please give it a like, a thumbs up wherever you're watching it, and share it with other people so they can hear this message. Maybe there's someone struggling with worthiness that should hear these words of inspiration and believe that they are worthy of whatever it is that they choose to pursue, and have a different way of looking at it. And as always, if you have questions for me, you can always reach out to me, Thomas@theprofessionalwingman.com. Once again, I appreciate you guys for being here, watching this wherever you are. And I will always encourage you to become iconic.